part of this whole exercise is having to acquire weapons and things like that through either networks or hitting targets. So when I got there, they were like, we need 4 or 5 of the more experienced guys to give up their rifles, and we'll gain it back through the simulation.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Hope you had a great holiday season. Today is episode 17, but it is the first time I'm having a repeat guest. His name is Jake Carlton. We were talking about his recent training through the SF pipeline. The training that he just got done with was Unconventional Warfare Simulation in the backwoods of North Carolina. We were talking about all kinds of things from gear, training, different things that he was going through, what he has to learn, what he has been learning from others, and the type of training that is part of the SF pipeline. So the first thing that we were talking about, which we don't fully explain right away, is we were talking about Palladium boots. So Palladium boots is a boot company that I've been wearing for a long time. It is something that I learned from my friend Keith Mann, which is also a SF Green Beret in the Army. So that's what we were talking about. So if you were a little lost. And also, it was the first time that I was using my new equipment for an in-person interview. So I've done an in-person interview before, but with different equipment. This is the first time that I'm using the current equipment that I have now. So if it sounds not completely professional, sorry, I'm not a professional. I hope you guys enjoy. Do you know who Rudy Reyes is?
Why do I know that name?
Generation Kill.
Oh,
He's
okay.
that Kung Fu master kind of guy.
Yeah.
Motivational speaker. He has these blue ones. So they're the same Palladium style. They're they got the black bottoms, but they're blue. And they got the canvas ones.
Uncool. Like, I thought I was cool, and I didn't realize I was.
And what's even more crazy is how cheap they are. It's incredibly cheap.
Do they have color? Oh, they do have color. Oh, sick.
Yeah, they got many. I wish I could find a store that actually has them, that has the actual brand, so I can test them and kind of try them on or see them in person.
What are the odds they have 13?
You're a 13?
In any of these. Yeah. Damn it. So they have black on black or Sahara. That sucks.
And which model?
The ones that you have, I think.
Oh, yeah. So right now we're talking about Palladium boots. These are like boots that kind of look like Converse All-Stars, but they have more of I wouldn't say a toe box, but they have plastic or rubber all around it. So a lot of them are waterproof to a point, like the seams at the bottom are waterproof, but then obviously once you get up like to the ankle height, they don't become they're not like Gore-Tex waterproof, but there are some more that have a better canvas style. They're awesome. You can get them on Amazon for like $50 to, I think the most expensive ones I've ever seen is $85. They're really nice. I've had more compliments on those shoes than any other. I wear them on the ship when I'm underway, when I'm not in like my actual work uniform. And everybody's like, oh, man, what are those? They look cool. They're kind of like combat-ish, but also they look comfortable. I've had these since my friend Keith Mann turned me on to them. He has like 4 pairs. That's all he does is wear them around his ranch. He owns a bison ranch, the first bison ranch that's ever been in Florida. And then also it's a free-range, grass-fed all the way through, from what he tells me. Grass-finished, grass-fed, bison, the only one in Florida. So it's a pretty cool project. So he's the owner and operator and ranch manager, I guess you would say.
Foreman.
No, he's got a foreman now.
He's got a foreman. So
yeah.
So he just owns.
So
it.
he's just the owner.
Yeah.
So he wears them all around the ranch when we've hunted a couple times, when we shoot. He's got them on. So he was the one who introduced me to them. And then after that, I got a pair, and I've been wanting to get more, but these things just don't fall apart. Nothing goes wrong with them. So
Well,
that's the only downside to them is they don't fall apart. So I can't get some new ones.
they have a real sole. That's the big thing. Like these things have legitimate tread.
Yeah, and you just saw mine.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's only thing that's starting to wear is the bottom around the toe box.
And that's not even wear. I mean, you can't even tell.
I've hunted in those. I did, like, most of the time when I wasn't wearing my 511 shoes, I was wearing a ton. I was wearing those when I was doing all those tactical shooting. I wore them in Colorado, Utah, wear them out in California. I wore them the whole time we were in Yosemite.
But they look good. That's the thing is it's got this
If
great
you look
crossover.
good, you perform good.
Well, everybody knows those rules.
That's why you
Rule
don't
number
perform
one
as well in
is
those
look
red
cool.
shoes.
Yeah, rule number 1 in SF is look cool. That's you learn that the day you show up. But these things, yeah, man, these are pretty awesome. I remember you sent them to me a while ago, and I was like, yeah, those are cool. And then I kind of like wrote them off, and I forgot that I was even dealing with them. And then I saw you post a picture of them the other day. I was like, oh man, I forgot about those. I need to get me a pair.
Absolutely.
Problem is, they don't seem to make them for larger individuals.
So
Although
they don't have 13?
They do have the black on black in 13. God, they have a medley of colors. I mean, there's 11 colors in their basic model.
Different
here.
type of canvas styles, different. I mean, they're pretty much all like the type of Converse, but then they also have some ones that aren't as tall, some that have a little bit more cushion around the top portion. Is it a prerequisite to wear those gator sunglasses?
No.
I feel like...
Okay, so these gator sunglasses are good for a couple things. They're really good for jumping.
Okay.
That's what they're really designed for.
Because they cup a lot of your eyes?
Well, they wrap around your head, and you can mold the...
So the metal's movable?
Yeah, whatever the word would be, the arms, whatever wraps around
You can
your
scoot
head.
your chair a little bit closer.
I don't know what it's actually called, but you can bend them to wrap around your head. So they squeeze your head
to
as
heat 'em up?
tight as you want. No, they're malleable. So you can wear them as tight as you need to, and they were designed by a SEAL. I'm pretty sure.
I see a lot of
they were designed by a
SEAls,
SEAL.
a lot of
And
all the fancy SF guys on Instagram now.
right, and so for jumping, they're pretty good for that. In uniform, when you're actually in regulations, which more often than not, you're not necessarily in regulations in most of those worlds. But if you're actually in regulations, you have to meet a set of standards, and these do meet the set of standards. So you find yourself leaning towards them. The Oakleys, you see a lot of those.
What do you mean the set of what's the actual? Is there like a SOP for it? Standard operation procedure?
Right, and it's like they have to be neutral,
have too much
color
color.
lens. Right. So I have a set of skeleton optics sunglasses. Have you seen those yet? Mm-hmm.
Did you black these out?
I did. I blacked those out mainly because number one, that puts them into regs. If I have them that are the emblems are silver or any other color, they're not in regs.
So these are called Gator eyewear, correct?
Yes.
And they're made in the U.S.
Yep. They're designed by a SEAL, and I'm pretty sure there's some level of return.
They have a really good rigidity feel to them.
Well, they're all metal. That's the other
They
thing.
feel good. Can you replace and exchange the lenses?
Yes. I may have just lied to you. I think you can, but I may have lied to you. They may not be replaceable. But I'm pretty sure you can pop them out and put new ones in because they make the I'm going to screw up the acronym, but it's like the ANSI or something along those lines, which is your highest ballistic rated sunglass lens, and they make them specifically for those as well. And I think you can swap them out. The other thing is the nose piece is malleable, so you can make it as far away from your face or as close to your face as you need to. So they have, for military use specifically, they have a lot of features that we look for. But they're just what I'm wearing now because they're just easy. They fit into the little sunglass holder in my truck, so I can drop them in.
Do you get a discount on them?
What have you. I got them from GovX.
Okay.
So they're $200 sunglasses. I bought them.
If you're a veteran or
80-some
in the active duty military and you don't know what GovX is, you're wrong. Type in govx.com and it will change your life. And if you know someone, or if your relative, your husband, your wife, your father, get them on GovX so you can get on GovX because you get everything for discounted. It is amazing. One of the best websites. That's where I've gotten. I specifically know that I'm going to be going full on with the Badlands brand of hunting gear.
That's what you decided with.
Because one, I like everything that I've got from them, and two, they go at least I'd say once a quarter. They have a big sale. So last time I got full, so it's a base layer, but the one that is like more of a turtleneck, but it's also 3/4
wool.
Merino wool.
It is wool. Okay.
Yeah, the 3/4 zip, and then the bottoms. I love them. I've only had 3 base layers. One for like skiing, another one that I think like one is from Smart Wool. These are by far the best ones.
I do really like the Smart Wool stuff. I'll tell you what I was actually surprised by. I wore in this past. I went on a training exercise for 2 weeks in North Carolina about 2 weeks ago, and well, I guess about a week ago. But we had a lot of snow. And we were out there for 2 weeks in this snow.
Was it snowing like when you were there, or it was already snowed a ton and you were dealing with it?
It hadn't. When I got there, it was cold, but everything was dry and perfect. The second morning I woke up, I dug my way out of the tent because 18 inches of snow fell that night.
Wow.
So we had a lot of snow.
1-man tent, 2-man tent.
You would actually be very proud. I was sleeping in a standard issue 2-man Marine Corps tent. It had 2nd Platoon actually written on it. But very impressed with the little nonsensical Marine Corps tent that you guys issue. The Army doesn't really issue a tent, and the one that they do meets a standard of, I think it's like 18 inches high. You know, whatever the standard actual is for creating a hooch in the field. It's meant to be really low because you don't want to have too much of a silhouette, yada yada, whatever. That's what they're, and it's really a 1-man tent. It meets a very, very niche standard. But the Marine Corps 2-man tent doesn't do that. So I was really impressed with. I had my entire Mystery Ranch pack. I have a 110-liter Mystery Ranch pack with me. I had.
Is that something that you got while you were in, or did you buy before?
I actually had a buddy give it to me right when I enlisted about 2 years ago. He was like, "Yeah, I got a couple of these. Why don't you take this and use it in your time in the military?" And that was actually. This past trip was actually the first time I was really able to use it
to the full potential.
Because I had 2 weeks worth of living packed into this thing. Now it ended up being kind of a waste because I wore literally the exact same clothes for 2 weeks. But anyway, the moral of the story was I wore the Army issue synthetic base layer. They call it a level 1, and it's literally just synthetic. And I was super impressed with how wet I could get, and it would wick water away.
So what's the material?
I couldn't tell you.
They don't have tags or anything?
Well, it does, but I mean...
What's the color? Is it like actual fatigue color?
It's like a coyote.
Okay.
Like a coyote tan.
So it's not meant to be seen?
No, okay. It's literally... And the only reason why I wore it, because I generally don't wear base layers, and I never wear base layers on my legs. But the only reason why I wore it is because during this exercise, we were setting a lot of ambushes, doing a lot of different movement patrols and things. So you're taking a lot of knees and laying in the prone on 18 inches of snow. So you would get soaked.
Okay.
So I was looking for something that would keep me from being wet when I was doing these. And I was very impressed with how, obviously my pants would get soaked, but my skin never felt wet because this synthetic base layer was wicking it away. So this is just Army issued nonsense.
Yeah.
And if anybody's ever been in the military, they know military grade means cheap and crappy.
Yeah. So when you wore the base layer, obviously when you're out there doing the patrols, are you guys in the regular BDUs?
No. So this...
Like, what does it look like when you were in, what was it, like 15-degree weather?
It was in the 20s probably, all the way up until it was like in the mid-30s, and all that snow started melting, and then it became a mud pit.
Okay,
but
when you were in the coldest, what did the layers look like?
It would draw. Oh wow, for me. So I was in civilians.
Oh, okay.
This whole exercise was in civilians. It's a very specific exercise. It's a simulation for unconventional warfare.
Okay.
So in essence, it's like 30 dudes fighting 50,000. But there's a lot that has to happen to be successful there. So it's a big simulation. It's really cool.
What was the name of the
It's part of the Q course.
Okay. Q course stands for qualifications course.
Right. It's the last school of the Q course. It's the culminating exercise.
Okay.
They call it the CULX. It's got an operational name to it. But those who live in North Carolina or follow SF in any way will have heard of it or seen it, or it's not.
Okay.
It's been going on for a long time.
So you're in the Army issue Coyote Brown base layer.
Right,
And then
but I was wearing those cool pants that I wore when we went on our camping trip.
Okay,
and I wore those
that's
the entire
the thicker
time.
one.
Yeah,
The
they're
one
the
that's a little bit more-
revolver.
Yeah. Oh, so it was a revolver.
The
So that's
revolver.
actually like in the middle.
It's actually somewhat thinner. Mm-hmm. It's really more.
Because they have the light one, which has like a little vents. Because I have that for when I was hunting in Florida.
Yeah, I like those.
And the revolver's right in the middle. And
Yeah.
then they have ones. It's almost like construction type pants.
The Rebel, and I
Yeah.
brought the Rebel with me. So I've got 3 or 4 pairs that cover that gamut. Between the revolver kind in the middle, I have the super light, stretchy kind that aren't the same as the one that you have with the vents. I can't remember the name of them.
Yeah, yours is more of a. I don't know if it has spandex, but it has some sort of stretch to it.
Not a ton of stretch. It's more like
It has some give.
It's kind of like a Cordura or a Ripstop. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what it is. It's not hard like a Carhartt type. That's what the Rebel is, but they're
Yeah, the one I have it's not flexible, but it has vents everywhere.
Right.
Which is perfect when you don't. I mean, you want pants, but also it's hot in Florida.
right. Now I have, and they're definitely thinner. There's really no insulation there at all. But I also have the stretchy ones, but I didn't wear those. I brought the Rebel, but I didn't really want to tear them up because I'm going to use them for other things in the future. And I knew I was going to be wearing these for quite a long time. I brought them to change into them because I figured they would take it the best. But once it started melting and you started getting some of that like red clay, everything started getting orange. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, at this point, we're just going to wear these, see how they do. So I had the base layer on. I had those on. As far as like jackets and stuff, I had a lot of layers. I had a synthetic base layer. And then I would have
Renegade, the ones
Renegade.
you have. Yeah,
Renegade is the
I'm on their
other one.
website right now.
Yeah, Renegade
They
is
have
the
a
other
lot
one.
of different options now.
Yeah, if you go to buy cool these days, you're really going to have to know what your niche is,
Yeah.
or you're not going to be buying the right pants for your needs.
And they're starting to come out. They're trying to come out with some more casual wear, but still somewhat functional or tactical.
I tell you what, man, I wear my cool stuff aside from the revolver. The way that
Contra
they're
is the
doing-
one that I have. Contra's the
Yes.
one that has the
vents
in
down
it.
the side, right? But these things, I mean, the way they're cutting them now, they have 2. They have the classic and the taper cut.
Mm-hmm.
If you have either of those 2, you would be publicly acceptable and not look like you're wearing some sort of crazy tactical pant, but still have some level of technical ability with them.
Yeah, Rebel and Rider are the ones that are the thicker brands.
Yes.
Contra Air Pants are the ones that I have that were perfect for Florida.
And then you have the Renegade
Mm-hmm.
and the Revolver.
Yep. Oh, I only have Revolver and Contra. I don't have a thick pair. I have my Vertex is my thicker pair. Those gray pants.
Yeah, those are pretty nice.
Which I was talking to Chris a bit ago, and he says the new versions of the Vertex pants are really, really nice.
Yeah, he's really pushing the
He says it's got some
Vortex stuff these
Yeah, he
days.
says it's got a little bit of stretch. They fit perfect. Like they have all the functionalities that the other pants do, but they still look. They're not like big and
Right.
bulky and have the bell bottoms.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is it's now it depends on like the cut you're looking for, and that's actually something you got to give Cool some credit for because they give you they only give you 3 real options, maybe 4. I can't tell you for sure, but they have like your like quote unquote like baggy, which is like
Yeah.
what these revolvers were. I was wearing my A Solo boots the whole time, so I didn't want something that was super tight at the ankle, obviously. Because
Those things finally break in.
oh man, those things were lifesavers. I was very impressed with those boots because two weeks of wearing those through what I was wearing them in, they're beyond broken in now. You
Okay.
wouldn't recognize them because they're orange because I
Yeah.
was going through some pretty nasty stuff at times. But
So you
yeah.
had the Army issue base layer, cool pants, and then so now you're talking about A Solo boots.
I was wearing the A Solo boots.
Did you bring any other boots?
I had so I brought my A Solo Gore-Tex. I only wear anything Gore-Tex anymore. I don't wear anything that's not Gore-Tex, no
Yep.
matter what time of year it is. So I had my A Solo boots, and I also brought my Solomon Speed Cross 3s that are also Gore-Tex.
Mm-hmm.
But
Are those the ones that go on around the ankle or above the ankle?
they're shorter.
Okay.
They're
So they're
just
more like
sneakers.
shoes.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're sneakers. But they're my buddy had his Speed Cross 3s, and he was trying to dry them out over the fire, and he burned his shoes.
Oh man.
So I gave him my Speed Cross 3s, so I pretty much had my solos, and that was it.
Okay.
So my plan, I wore my Solomons for the first day gave him my Solomons, and then I wore my A solos from there on out. But I was glad I did, because once that
So he
first
owes you
day,
big time.
it wasn't. I mean, he's he's done plenty for me.
Okay.
It was the least I can do. He's a super good guy. But he was the one I was telling you about. That was the Marine Corps officer. But he wore those. I was planning on wearing those more, and then that second day was when that snow rolled in. So I would have moved to the A solos anyway, because it was about knee-high snow.
Wow.
It was pretty significant. If you ever watch like that dual survival show,
Yeah.
and you see them trudging through the mountains, that's what we looked like.
Yeah.
It was pretty thick.
Did you have? So did you wear like a certain type of sock or anything like that? And did you have any kind of gaiters to go between?
No.
Okay, so it was just pants, boots.
Yeah, so I wore, I only ever wear Darn Tough socks in the military anyway. I do have some Smart Wools, I wear those too, but the Darn Tough has really got some, I've been very impressed with them. But I didn't have anything that was like thick wool layer, so my feet did get cold after a while. The Gore-Tex helped a lot, and the quality boot helped a lot, but I think because they were as cold as they were for as long as they were, it created some issues with my feet.
How cold did your feet get?
They got to the point where, I guess now that I've been out for a while, it created some level of like nerve damage in my feet.
So you didn't have frostbite, but it got close to it?
I originally thought it was what's called frost nip, which is like the first real phase of frostbite, but I guess it's a little worse than that, because frost nip is just you get numb, it warms back up, and you're good. And then you have your superficial frostbite, which is like you get numb, there's actually some like nerve damage, but you also have some external manifestation of the ailment, so you'll have like blisters or something like that. And I never got that. So what
Did it ever change colors?
they never changed colors. So
it just
that's,
felt weird. And
that's deep frostbite. That's
Okay.
a whole nother. That's real. It'll never recover. This should recover, hopefully, from the medical professionals that I've spoken to, and from Allie and her knowledge, and talking to some other people.
And Allie's your fiance that is almost, but going through PA school.
Right.
She's about.
She's
What,
got
year?
2 more rotations. She's
is
got
it, how long is her rotations?
6 weeks.
Oh, so she's less than a year.
Yeah, she's almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said it's nerve pain, but they're giving you some hope that you're going to recover from it.
Well, she had to do some research on it, and then I talked to I don't know if you ever met Medic. He's
I met him once.
Head trauma nurse at Sarasota Memorial, and I talked to him. He's like, "Well, this is my thought, but I'm going into work tomorrow, so let me see if I can talk to one of the neurologists." And then he talked to him, and coming back from the neurologist, he was like, "Yeah, you're it could be permanent, or it could be gone in a couple weeks. I don't know. I'm feeling better. I feel good. Like when we went to go work out this morning, it feels a lot better. It's only when
Being a little safe on getting a lot of toe flexion.
yeah, but I mean,
Actually, that would be toe extension. Yeah.
whichever one it is.
Yeah.
You tell me. You're the one who does all the
Yeah.
anatomical stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those deals where it's like there's nothing structurally wrong. So it's just a matter of my feet being numb and then painful and then numb and then painful. So when you actually need to go to work and do stuff, you just go through that and call it a day. But other than that, like all that gear was really good. I know now, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that I changed my socks once through all of that. I was really kind of testing to see what the capabilities were.
Change your socks as in because they got dirty, or change your, like you wore the socks the whole entire time, never took them off, or
I wore the first pair of Darn Toughs for roughly 5 days-ish, and then I wore the second pair of Darn Toughs all the way through.
okay.
And it was
Now
all,
at night when you're sleeping, how many layers you taking off? Like what's the sleeping condition?
It depends on the kind of what we could figure out for the forecast, if it got warm or not. There were nights. So what I wore as far as like jackets and stuff went, there were nights where I would wear literally everything, but I was wearing a synthetic layer on top with. I have a quarter zip fleece cool jacket, and the Army issues what we call a waffle top. It's like a level 2.
A waffle top.
That's what we call it. It's very difficult to describe, but it kind of looks like a waffle. It's got like little checkers in it, but it's another fleece type. It's pretty
Is
thick.
that
It's fairly
Army
warm.
issue or
it's
more
an
civilian?
Army. It's an Army issue.
Okay.
But I wore it under all my civilian stuff, and then I had a flannel. So I had the waffle top with a flannel over it, with the cool quarter zip over that, and then I had what.
So you had your base layer,
Right.
which was the coyote brown, then
Yep.
the waffle top. So is it more of like a thinner?
It's thinner, but it's definitely thicker than the base layer.
Okay.
It's,
so more of like a fleece instead of
think
like
of it as a fleece. It's
Okay.
a quarter zip type jacket.
All right.
And then over that, I had a flannel. And then over that, I had another quarter zip fleece, but that was thicker. That one was also made by Cool. And
Like
and
a
I brought
Gore-Tex type of jacket?
And on top of that, I had Outdoor Research Colossus parka, which is a parka that's designed for the military. It's a very, very specifically designed. It's very expensive. I have a deal with Outdoor Research, so I was able to get it for a pretty decent price. But it's one of those tremendously over-designed type jackets, and that's what kind of saved me through the weather, because it was pretty cold.
Okay. And then
Now, I had an Arc'teryx full zip fleece type jacket as well that I brought, but another guy, another buddy of mine that was out there didn't quite have enough gear and he was pretty cold, so I lent that to him the entire time. So I never layered that one, but if I did, I don't think I ever would have been cold.
So is it because you're walking so much and moving so much, you don't have a lot of layers on the bottom? You're not wearing like Gore-Tex rain pants on the bottom?
Now, the only thing I would say is the two things I was desperately
How dare
needing.
you not silence that thing? Oh, man, that was not my words coming out. I've listened to so many Joe Rogan podcasts, is every time someone doesn't silence their phone, he's like, how dare you? Can't believe that. I just word vomited someone else's words.
Hey,
when you
man,
listen to something so many times.
That'll do it.
All right. So you're saying we were talking about the Gore-Tex.
That was definitely the piece of gear I was missing the most, is some level of a shell.
Okay.
Now, I had Army issued Gore-Tex shells, but they're not worth much in relation to a civilian Gore-Tex shell.
Okay.
So that was the one thing I think I would do specifically in another situation like that, would have Gore-Tex pants and jacket for things like laying in the prone, traveling and taking knees and stuff where you're trying to stay dry.
Okay.
So some guys wore the Army issued Gore-Tex stuff and they said they stayed dried. Honestly, I just didn't really care that much.
So if you had to do it all over again and pick the perfect gear, because obviously you knew this thing was coming up, it wasn't just surprised on you.
Right.
You kind of had planned. So what would you have changed of your layering system?
As far as layering goes, I never really got cold.
Okay.
If
Except for
I
your toes.
could go pick, I would definitely bring like a thicker.
Did other guys
wool
have the
socks.
same issues?
I mean, everybody. I bet you my feet were still warmer than most.
Really?
But they were taking better care. They weren't testing it quite like I was. I was trying to see, like, hey, what are the capabilities? Where are my
So you were testing
what we call
the
capes and limbs.
capabilities of the sock shoes, or what?
Of the socks.
Okay.
So I'm about to go to another school in January for 6 weeks where I'm going to be out in the cold just like this. So I wanted to see, do I need better equipment for that cold, or is this going to suffice? And now I also have insulated boots with some Thinsulate in them, made by Rocky, that I'm going to bring. That'll help. And I also now bought the thickest smart wool socks that they have, specifically for the school coming up. So I know now that's something I needed to change in my system going into the next school.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I wanted to see. And, I'll live with a little bit of pain I have now to be able to answer that question. Hopefully it goes away before that school rolls around. And if it does, then, mission accomplished. I know what I needed to change, and I changed it. As far as that system goes, if I had infinite amount of money and they said you can buy whatever you need specifically for this trip, what else would you like to layer? It would definitely be a 3-layer Gore-Tex something, whether it's Outdoor Research or Arc'teryx. Those would be the two things, or those would be the two brands that I like the most. But that would be what I would really look for, is some level of Gore-Tex shell, because even when I was moving through the woods, I mean, these are still thick woods that we're moving through. Even though it's wintertime, there's no brush, there's still vines, trees, stuff like that, and I didn't like wearing the parka snagging on things because it is somewhat of a down insulation. If I didn't have a shell over it that was a little more rough and then getting into the prone. Now, I will say that Colossus parka that OR makes was very good with water. I never one time, I got rained on. Now, I had a little bit of a rain shell on at the time, the Army issued one, which isn't worth a ton for rain, but I got rained on in that jacket, and I definitely got snowed on in that jacket. I never put on a
outdoor
shell
research
for that outdoor research Colossus parka. I never put on a shell in the snow, and I never got wet. So it really does shed water pretty well, but it's still not ideal. What I would like to have done is during movement, when we actually left the base camp, went to go do a mission, come back, I would like to have left the Colossus parka, kept my layers on, and replaced it with a shell. That's what I would have done.
Now, since you do have base camp, you didn't have to carry everything on your back.
The only thing I carried was a go bag on mission. And the go bag, honestly, most of the time was on my back for collection of what we may pick up from the ambush site or from the raid site.
Okay. Were you with any weapons then?
M4s.
Okay. So
Well, we brought 240s and 249s specifically to specific missions. I mean, some missions we drove in on. We did a raid that was mounted where we literally drove in on 3 trucks. An assault team hopped out of one truck. You did what you did, hopped back in the truck, and left.
Okay.
So, I mean, that was... we didn't walk anywhere. Probably would have wore the park for the entire thing for that. But as far as walking in or walking out goes, we would drive to where we were going, maybe walk a click at the farthest.
Explain what a click is for some people that don't understand.
A little shorter than a mile.
Okay.
And then do whatever we did, walk out. Most of the time, our exfil would involve a truck picking us up on the X. So we'll do whatever we do, secure whatever site it is, ambush, raid site, whatever, and then hop in the truck and leave.
Okay.
So didn't bring a lot of supplies.
All right.
Sometimes, like I'd have a Nalgene full of water, maybe a panic MRE type thing, an emergency MRE, and that's about it. We would just pack in whatever else we found on site into backpacks that way.
What type of MREs are you guys using right now? Is it still the standard issue?
Yeah.
Big can? Because there's multiple different types of MREs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So which ones are you? Is it the full meals, the smaller ones?
No, it's the full brown bag.
And then you can partition it however you want?
Yeah, I think there's one. One's made in South Carolina and the other one's made in Cincinnati, but it's all the same recipes.
Okay.
It's the same. If you ever open a box of MREs, you have the A meals and the B meals, and that's a standard issue, standard gets. There's nothing special about them. No winter MREs or any of the civilian stuff. It's the full brown bag deal.
So when you are on the mission and whatnot, what is the type of gear that you're having that's not part of the clothing? So what's your M4? Is it completely standard issue? Have you been able to?
So for the exercise, this was pretty much like, here you go. Nothing special. No optics on it. Iron sights. No laser targeting. Well, I say
so. This wasn't your
laser
specific.
No,
this was a weapon that was done specifically for this type of
We
training.
walked up and they're like, "Here's your rifle. Sign for it. Give it back." Matter of fact, in it, part of this whole exercise is having to acquire weapons and things like that through either networks or hitting targets. So when I got there, they were like, we need 4 or 5 of the more experienced guys to give up their rifles, and we'll gain it back through the simulation. So I gave up my rifle with a couple other dudes, and I didn't get my rifle back till the last day of the exercise.
Okay.
And it just happened to come in on one of the hits we did. All of a sudden it came back, and they read out the serial number. They're like, oh, this one will be yours.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, wink, wink. This is the one you signed for.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. I finally got this thing back. So other than that, it was like...
Were you guys trying to get different type of weapons? That was the goal. Obviously, you guys only had M4s, but you guys were trying to get different weapons from different people?
So I wouldn't say they were trying to. It's very specific the way this works out without getting too far into the minutia of it. But certain weapons are brought in. A 240 and a 249 were brought in. Some were already on site. There was one 240 already on site. And then
those the 240B Bravos?
240 Bravo, yes. And then as you hit targets, they could have been there. It's just part of the scenario. They weren't necessarily hitting targets, or the plan was not necessarily to hit targets in search of weapons. Honestly, so that's an S4 function, which is like supply or logistics. And I'm not even sure S4 was always tracking that I didn't even have a rifle. So I don't think they were really hitting it for that reason. There were more strategic reasons for hitting majority of the targets. There were things like, oh, well, they're routing power through here. So for us to cut power from here, it cuts power to this, and that would be useful. Or if I hit this road, it cuts supply lines. So, and then if we hit that road and, run an ambush or do something to destroy a bridge or whatever, maybe on site we come across something that leads us to something else, and eventually that kind of works our way into a rifle or what have you.
Okay.
So, like, we did an ambush on a truck that we knew was running supplies to the enemy, whatever. And then when we got into the truck, there was a rifle in there.
So did you guys have to simulate getting information from like a base command, or were you guys going out and getting that specific information by doing reconnaissance?
So it was done both ways. Those guys were talking to quote-unquote hire. And hire is, in essence, those who are running the simulation, giving the information that they want them to have to be able to progress. It's all an unconventional warfare exercise. So they're giving them enough, or from what it seemed like, they're giving them enough to kind of edge them in the direction they want them to go. Hopefully help them out in a little ways, but without giving them too much so that they can't figure it out on their own type thing. So they were getting that information, and then with that information, they'll say, okay, well, we need to go figure this out. So we need to go talk to these people or send out a recon to look at this site or what have you. So they get in essence, they give them a small little snapshot of it, and then for you to get the rest of the picture, you have to go figure that out on your own.
Okay.
So a good example is the last target we hit. We knew the site, and we had imagery of it, but the actual target itself wasn't on the imagery. So in essence, it was a safe house, but the imagery didn't have the safe house in it. So whether it was put in after the satellite photos or what have you, we didn't know what it looked like. So we had to send out a 12-hour recon to go look at it, send back pictures so we can then develop a plan and hit that target.
What type of imagery are you looking at? Is it strictly photo, actual paper, or is it through...
It all depends.
Okay.
It all depends. There's...
I can't imagine you guys out there with like iPads or something like that. Sometimes?
They have capabilities.
Yeah, okay.
There's capabilities to look at things digitally out there for sure. And then there's also printouts.
Sweet.
They weren't iPads, I could tell you that.
Okay.
But there's technology.
Okay.
The technology piece is there. We do live in the 21st century now, and they've done a pretty good job with that. And some of that stuff was really cool because we were able to plan routes through overhead imagery rather than older maps.
All right.
Things like that. So we can say, oh, well, this doesn't look like what we thought it looked like here, or what have you.
And I know from what you've told me before is that you've had to go through the training to use the old school maps and chart a plot, chart a course.
Yeah.
But now that you're getting into the more advanced stuff, you're starting to use more advanced gear.
Absolutely.
But still have the capability of going back to the old school.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's still like a lot of the stuff I'll do in the future will still be map reconnaissance or map planning or map navigation. But there's also, and with where I'm at now, it's not going to be super high speed stuff. It's going to be, this is what we used 10 years ago. Not the best we can do. We'll see how it works for you type stuff.
Okay.
Now, there's radios we have with GPS capabilities, and if you have the antenna, you can run them through there, and it'll be able to locate guys through those radios and stuff like that. And you'll have those. I don't know if we'll have the antennas for it.
Yeah.
But we'll have the radios that'll give us the GPS abilities and stuff like that. So there's a lot there, and we'll be able to use it just if you know how to use it or take the time to study it.
What other kind of gear did you have on you? Like knives or any type of what did you have on your body?
So I
most of the
didn't
time?
bring any kit. Well, actually, that's not true. I had kit, but because of how the simulation kind of shook out, I only ever had 2 magazines, maybe 3 at most. So
how many pistols? Just M4.
Just an M4.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where it's like very minimal. Oh man.
I know.
Now do I get to say how dare you?
Yeah.
Good
Well, that was
gracious.
through the computer. So my phone is on vibrate.
Oh,
but that was
okay.
through
Well,
the
you
computer.
didn't put the computer on vibrate?
I don't actually know how to put the computer on. It's never happened like that before. Leisha.
Anyway, yeah, because of how it kind of shook out, it's meant to be very minimalistic on our side of what we have. So I had kit with me, but I didn't wear it because I only ever had 1 magazine in the gun, and
Okay.
I just put either 1 in my back left pocket or 2 in my back left pocket.
Okay.
And I would just reload from my back pocket because I've done it so much in the past. I was pretty comfortable doing
Yeah.
it.
So you didn't have any kind of tack vest on?
No,
or...
and really a lot of it looked like, I mean, a lot of it is we would be in areas where, you know, we would have a cover story of we're hunting coyotes out here. Or, you know, hey, I'm helping him move furniture, and I just had a rifle hidden type thing. Like, we were supposed to blend into the environment.
So you're not supposed to be fully camouflaged.
Right.
It's supposed to be more of just, hey, we're supposed to be out here. We belong out here.
Yeah, I live here.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any ties with anything else. I'm just here type
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, like, there were no, like...
So you guys weren't tactical
Not at all.
everything.
It was very... Clandestine's a high-speed word, but
Yeah.
the idea is you were...
Low visibility.
Yeah, I mean, if you're fighting 15, 30 dudes against, you know, an army of 50,000 or whatever the army is, you probably don't want to put on a uniform and fight the guys who are also in uniform.
Okay.
You know?
Makes sense.
Very Viet Cong-like. We're kind of just there that they don't really know we're there type thing.
Sweet. So was this one of your favorite type exercises or just one of those, like, checking the boxes?
Both. Absolutely.
Something cool experience?
Very cool experience. Very interesting to learn some stuff. It was good to get some reps on some stuff that I've learned outside of school. I took the time to study it. Some of the planning pieces, some of they call things like troop leading procedures. Pretty much how our planning process works. Understanding the enemy situation and how that applies. You know, things like that. So to be able to get some reps on that outside of what I've already had was good. To be able to do it kind of in more of a non-conducive environment, I guess, where you're not necessarily actually at some sort of a fob or whatever, where you actually have the ability to look at a little more technically what you're going to be doing. You know, whatever gear you have is what you specifically brought on your back. So to be able to do it in that way was good, but
Get a little uncomfortable, struggle a little bit.
in essence, I mean, and it's not even just that part, because it really wasn't a struggle. I mean, we were able to do whatever it is we needed to. It was cold, you know, that part was painful, but outside of that, it was really more of how do you work with a lack of the higher speed technology.
Okay, yeah.
You know, because whatever we did as far as technology, they had to put in a backpack and carry in. So I mean, it was definitely a check of the box type thing, because I mean, I'm here on leave for Christmas, and my leave got pushed to the right because the dates for this got pushed to the right. So that part was like, okay, let me just go, you know, do what I do so I can go take some time off before I go to this next school.
Sweet.
But while I was there was some very and some of the guys I worked with that were contracting in a simulation had some very high-speed experience, some thin air in the Army type experience for long periods of time. So being able to talk to him and pick his brain was more
Beneficial.
priceless than anything.
Okay, that's good.
Because he was
Great to hear.
He was fantastic.
Sweet. All right. Thanks, Jake, and thanks, everyone, for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. His service and his ability to endure has always amazed me. It's really cool to hear the training and the pipeline of what Green Berets and Special Forces go through. Please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. We are now available on YouTube. I finally figured out how to make a video and put the podcast on YouTube, so check that out. And as always, have a great day.